The Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers face off in round 2 of the 2024 season. We talk about why Baltimore is set to take back the AFC North, predictions for the game, how Baltimore matches up with the Steelers, and vice versa, all that and more on a game day bonus edition of Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every day on this game day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. That includes a video form on YouTube where you can like and subscribe to the channel. Also an audio form where you can follow along and subscribe as well. It's the same show, both audio and video. You're not missing out on any content, whether you decide to watch or listen to the show. We're a 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens podcast. So news, analysis, updates, we have you covered all the way around here on Locked On Ravens. Today's game day edition of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost and it's easy to get started. Happy game day, everybody. Here we are, Saturday. Still super weird to me. It's throwing me off, but Ravens face off against the Pittsburgh Steelers at M&T Bank Stadium. Thanks for tuning in today on game day here on Locked On Ravens, whether you're on the way to the stadium to watch the game, whether you're getting ready for a tailgate or going to a friend's house or a family member's house to watch the game, or if you're just getting ready yourself. Appreciate you tuning in. We're going to be talking about the Ravens and the Steelers, how they match up with each other offensively, defensively, talk about some final predictions, and a lot more on this episode. And we also did, by the way, a live show because there was some news yesterday on Deontay Johnson finally getting released from the Ravens. So we did an instant reaction episode yesterday afternoon. So if you haven't checked that out yet or haven't had the opportunity, be sure to dive into that for some more Deontay Johnson content. We'll talk about it a little bit here today, but we talked about it a lot more in depth over there. Now, this Ravens offense, let's start there. We'll do first segment offense, first defense, Ravens offense, Steelers defense, and second segment we'll flip that script around. So Baltimore's offense, I feel like this is going to be a better game for Lamar Jackson against the Steelers. We know the storylines. There have been plenty of them, and we've talked about them here on Locked On Ravens. Lamar, if there is a team that has been his kryptonite, it has been the Pittsburgh Steelers. Baltimore's lost 8 of 9 games to the Steelers, and it just feels like Lamar really hasn't been able to figure him out. Part of that's because Lamar hasn't played in a lot of these games, if we're being honest, whether it was because he was injured or the Ravens were so good that the Ravens played the Steelers in Week 18. He just sat out that game. This will be the first time in Lamar's career he will play in front of a full M&T Bank Stadium against the Steelers, and this will also be the first time in his career he plays in both or starts both games against the Steelers in a season. But I think we saw a different Lamar Jackson last week, and not in a bad way. We know his mom gave him a piece of her mind and told him, look, you got to take the lanes when they're available. And we saw Lamar against the Giants certainly do some of that. It wasn't like he was just spam running actions. That's not what was happening. And it shouldn't be, because this season Lamar's been incredible as a passer. He's been incredible as a passer for a really long time now. But this to me feels like there's just, we can talk about energy. And the Ravens have honestly talked not a big game this week, but they've been very like, hey, we're really mad about this, and we're going to change the narrative, and we want to do everything we can. You got to back that up on the field. And I think it starts with Lamar and the offense, because I think a good thing to do, especially with these divisional matchups the second time around, is look back at how the first game went. The Ravens lose that game 18-16. The offense sputters for the majority of the game. The Ravens defense, remember, that was the first game the Ravens defense actually started playing well again. And the defense gave the Ravens offense opportunity after opportunity, and the Ravens just continued to squander them, whether it be Justin Tucker, whether it be Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, whoever. I would expect a more healthy dose of Derrick Henry in this game. Last time the Ravens and Steelers faced off, Henry only had 13 carries for 65 yards and a score. I think a lot of that was dictated by his early fumble. I think Baltimore got in their own head a little bit and abandoned the run a little too early. Then by the time that the game goes on, you have to abandon. You have no choice if you're in a negative game flow. So I think that despite Pittsburgh's defense being good against the run, you have to try to establish that ground game with Derrick Henry if you're Baltimore. For reference, Pittsburgh's defense is 5th in the league in rushing defense, giving up just 4 yards per attempt. But the pass defense is going to be interesting here because Deshaun Elliott was ruled out with an injury. Dante Jackson is questionable for this game. On the Ravens side of things, Nelson Aguilar is out with a concussion. He was officially ruled out. Obviously, Deontay Johnson no longer with the team. But the big question here is Rashad Bateman. We don't know if Bateman's going to play or not. Albert Breer reported on Thursday night that the Ravens initially maybe thought that injury was serious, but further testing revealed that it wasn't, and seems like the Ravens caught another big injury break. Seems like they've caught a lot of those this season, and honestly, they deserve it based off of what they've been through over the course of the franchise. But seems like this year there have been a lot of players that have gone down, and we're saying, oh man, oh, that looks bad. And then the Ravens escape with just a minor thing. So seems to be the case with Rashad Bateman. Apparently, the trainers will figure it out with him. They'll work with Rashad Bateman to see how good he feels heading into today's game. But if Rashad Bateman isn't able to play, you're kind of talking about 2 really banged up units with Baltimore's pass catchers and Pittsburgh's secondary. So if that's the case, you would have to rely on Zay Flowers, Tylan Wallace, Tez Walker, and the Ravens did call Anthony Miller up from the practice squad. So if Bateman doesn't play, you're essentially rocking with 4 wide receivers. I'd expect Isaiah Likely to get more snaps in that situation. I'd expect the Ravens to maybe rely on Mark Andrews more, Zay Flowers obviously as well. But hey, Tylan Wallace and Tez Walker could also step up. Who knows? I know we had a conversation during the live show yesterday about maybe Odell Beckham Jr. coming back to town. We'll see, but he's not going to be available for this game. But no matter how good or bad the Ravens or Steelers are, these games always come down to the wire. They're always sloppy for the most part. You have, there are always 1-off games or 2-off games where that's not the case and one team maybe blows out the other. But I'm expecting another close one, despite the fact, and we'll talk about this in the second part of the show, that I am really not high on Pittsburgh's offense in this game. I think this could be an ugly game for the Steelers offense. So if that's the case, right, let's just say that's the case, the Ravens defense shuts down the Steelers offense again. You're not asking for so much from this offense, this historic group. But something is always in the air when the Ravens play Pittsburgh, apparently. So there's always some weird stuff going on. And you think, oh, hey, this actually kind of lines up for Baltimore pretty well. TJ Watt is going to play in this game, but clearly it looks like he's going to be limited in some way, shape, or form due to the injury he suffered late against the Eagles. That's a big loss for them if TJ Watt has to be on a snap count. Now, they still have Alex Highsmith. They have Nick Herbig. They have guys that can step into those roles. But I'm really curious to see, because if you can establish a run game if you're the Ravens and convert on your opportunities. The Ravens, when it came to converting on opportunities in that first game on the offensive side of the ball, they really weren't good. They went 4 of 11 on third down. Didn't attempt a fourth down in this game, which honestly at this point with how John Harbaugh calls the games is kind of an outlier. But 4 of 11 on third down is going to cut it. Now, Pittsburgh actually was worse, 4 of 16. But it kind of just felt like Baltimore wasn't converting and had leverage situations. And obviously the big number that absolutely glares out to you here is the Justin Tucker missed field goals. But when the Baltimore got in the red zone, they converted. They were 2 for 2 in the red zone. That wasn't the problem. But then you also have the penalties. 12 for 80 with penalties. It's just been far too long of a situation this season where Baltimore has let penalties rule a game. And again, as I've mentioned before, they're dead last in nearly every single statistical penalty category. So moving forward, they got to shore that up, especially against the Pittsburgh team that will make them pay if they don't. We're coming up in the second part of the show. We'll be talking about the Ravens defense against the Pittsburgh offense. We'll flip the field here. Stay tuned. We'll have to get to on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 1,000 times your cash. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app. I love going on Prize Picks, seeing everything they have to offer over there, and make your holidays bigger and brighter with Prize Picks, the best place to get real money action while watching your favorite sports. You can now win up to 1,000 times your money on Prize Picks, and Prize Picks now offers MasterCard for quick and easy deposits into your account. this sports season. Join now because this holiday season, Prize Picks is giving away 2 free picks in December, and they're giving away $30+ million in rewards during Picksmas. If you think James Cook could get more than 60 yards next week, or Joe Burrow more than 1.5 touchdowns, cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. So for this Ravens and Steelers game, man, I think I'm going with more on the Derrick Henry rushing yards. I think that's the one I like over on Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDON to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDON to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. And the show is brought to you by the College Football Playoff. It's that time of year. The College Football Playoff is back with the newly expanded 12-team format. It's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the College Football Playoff begins September 21st, starting with the College Football Playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern. Leading into our first matchup, the Southern Methodist University Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers looked up to the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 p.m. Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the College Football Playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. We're back. Our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher here with you still on this game day edition of the show on Saturday. Appreciate everybody again for tuning in, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen each and every single day as well. We go live after every Ravens game. So after the Ravens and Steelers play today, we'll be going live here on Locked On Ravens. Probably about 15 minutes after the game ends, maximum 30, and we will dive into everything that happened, win, lose, hopefully not tie. We do not like ties over here on Locked On Ravens. Also, we do these game day episodes every single game day that's on a weekend, and we also have our weekday show. That's Monday through Friday. Obviously, that's a regular show, 6 a.m. Eastern time. So we have a ton of Ravens content. If you want some daily Ravens coverage, be sure to like and subscribe video form or audio form, however you want to watch or listen. And if you have a friend or a family member who also wants daily Ravens coverage, be sure to send them our way over on Locked On Ravens. Word of mouth, still very important. But let's talk about the Ravens defense going up against the Steelers offense. I love this matchup for the Ravens defense. We know the improvement that Baltimore has shown on the defensive side of the ball over the past month. It's been an incredible turnaround. The run defense still elite, but the pass defense has found something here. With Ardarius Washington, you add Trey White. We know that Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton, those guys have all been playing at a really high level. Nate Wiggins has been awesome as a rookie. I know Brandon Stevens has had some up and down moments this year, but even still, the secondary looks great. They're going up against the Steelers team that is not going to have George Pickens in this game. That, to me, was the final nail for me of saying, okay, this is probably going to be a Ravens win. Now, the Ravens could easily lose this game. I'm not declaring, oh, Ravens 100% win. I'm so confident. Like, no, of course. Games can get weird. Things can happen. We have seen it with this Ravens team over and over again. But I feel really confident in this Ravens defense, especially because of no George Pickens. The wide receivers on Pittsburgh's roster, minus George Pickens, it's Calvin Austin, Mike Williams, Scotty Miller, Van Jefferson, Ben Skoranek. If you lose to those 5 wide receivers, I don't know what to tell you. I don't, especially with how the secondary has played over the past month. I mean, it's been super impressive. Meanwhile, we saw what the Steelers offense looked like without George Pickens last week against Philadelphia. And I believe that the Steelers rank last in a ton of different categories when George Pickens is not on the field. They're a middling offense with George Pickens on the field. But the issue was they have nobody else. Remember back in 2022, when the Ravens essentially went all in on Rashad Bateman as the number 1 receiver, didn't bring in any veteran help outside of Sammy Watkins, and really said, all right, Rashad, you're the number 1. Devin Duvernay's number 2. If either of those guys went down, the Ravens, their season offensively was done. And what happened? Well, both of them went down, but Rashad went down, and that just it threw everything off. George Pickens is a star receiver in this league. He is really, really good. Calvin Austin, I think, is a solid player. Other than that, the Steelers have nobody. And if you like the George Pickens, Calvin Austin combo, I don't blame you. I do too. But it's just the reality of the Ravens being able to match up well with Pittsburgh's receiving weapons anyway, and now not having your biggest receiving threat if you're Pittsburgh, that would worry me. I think you can sell out to stop the run a little bit more. If you're the Ravens, Pittsburgh will probably try to work the short intermediate passing game a little more than the deep stuff, although we know Russell Wilson loves a little moon ball, so we'll probably see some of those throughout the game as well. But it's going to put a lot of stress on the Pittsburgh offense to perform, for the Steelers running game to get going and keep the Ravens defense honest. And I mean, that Ravens run defense does not budge. They are an elite unit when it comes to run defense. They, of course, are the number one rush defense in the league, giving up just 3.5 yards per carry. So it's going to be on Pittsburgh to extend drives, get themselves into second and medium, second and manageable. If they can't get themselves out of like 2nd and 10, 2nd and 9, it could be a really long day for them. Now, on the flip side, if Baltimore starts giving up 6-yard carries to Najee Harris and Jalen Warren, or Pittsburgh's able to go and do a lot of things with their short game, maybe screen game, that could hurt the Ravens. But one thing that Pittsburgh will not have in this game is Justin Fields. And they like using Justin Fields as a change of pace option. We've seen it throughout the season. We saw it when the Steelers played the Ravens the first time. That's not, it's not like the biggest loss in the world, but it's an underrated loss, I would say, for the Steelers. So they no longer have that option ability. Like if Russ struggles, it doesn't matter. Like you can't do a change of pace guy. Russ is going to be the guy. And not having Justin Fields, not having George Pickens, I think that's a tough scenario to be in. Now, what I would like to see from this Ravens defense is really consistent pass rush for the majority of the game. That, to me, would be a really successful day. Odafe Oweh obviously ate the Steelers for lunch last time these two teams played, but I want to see that consistently from the entire group, right? Nnamdi Madubuike, Travis Jones, Kyle Van Noy, Oweh, all these guys. I want to see that, and hopefully we will. But at the end of the day, these two teams are battling for the AFC North crown. Now, obviously, if Pittsburgh wins, they win the North. There's no way Baltimore can get back in the race there. If the Ravens win, they will eliminate the head-to-head tiebreaker. They'll pull even to a tie with Pittsburgh. They would still need help from the Steelers in order for them to win the division. But to me, I love the offense versus defense matchup for Baltimore on the defensive side of the ball. Baltimore's offense versus Pittsburgh's defense, I could see that going either way, especially with all the injuries on both sides of the ball there. But I think that this game will be won because Pittsburgh's offense won't be able to do enough against Baltimore's defense. And that leads perfectly into the final part of the show because we'll get into our final predictions. I guess I've already kind of spoiled one or two of them, but I still have a lot more for you. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot to get to here on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, Introduction to Free Market Economics, and so much more. They have a course on the Great American Story, and really a lot more. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. We're back. Our final segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostraker here with you on this Saturday edition of the show. It's game day here. Ravens take on the Steelers at M&T Bank Stadium, 4:30. Then, of course, have that short turnaround as they will be going to Houston for Christmas Day. 3 games in 11 days for the Ravens. Absolutely brutal. This is going to be, I believe, their most physical game of the year against the Steelers. Appreciate everybody for tuning in again here on Locked On Ravens. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Would really appreciate that. Video form and audio form, the support we've gotten, video, audio, social media, subtext, everything. It's been absolutely incredible. I'm starting out my Instagram again for like the 18 millionth time. It's been a while. I've gone on again, off again, on again, off again. So you can follow me on social media, Instagram and Twitter at ChaosStriker34. Now let's get into some final predictions for the Ravens and Steelers. I personally believe with all the wide receiver injuries, we don't know if Rashad Bateman's going to play here at the time of this recording. Still pretty up in the air. I'm predicting a big Tylan Wallace game either way. And the reason is I don't know if Rashad Bateman's going to have a full complement of snaps. And I'm not sure. Look, Tez Walker had a really great play against the Giants, right? Awesome first catch, first touchdown. And I expect him to get more run in this game, obviously. But I think the Ravens trust Tylan Wallace. They like what he's shown as a receiver. I know punt returner has been iffy. That's why they elevated Desmond King, who did a great job last week against the Giants. And look, he accolades on accolades in that department for a reason. But I feel like Tylen is going to get a lot of opportunities in this game. And against the Steelers defense, we know Joey Porter Jr. is going to be there. And it's going to be probably guys like Beanie Bishop and James Pierre and those players. If Dante Jackson can't go, I feel like Tylen is going to get opportunities and he's going to have a big game. That's going to be my prediction there. I also think Zay Flowers backs up the words he's talked about earlier in the week where he said the Steelers defense, the pass defense doesn't really do anything to stress him out, even though he hasn't really had a big game against Pittsburgh in the 2 he's played. I think Zay is going to have a big game here too. But I'm going with who's going to have the biggest game. I think Baltimore is going to feed Derrick Henry. I really do. I think that they understand they didn't establish the run game early enough, and by the time they wanted to, it was too late. I feel like this is going to be a big, hey, let's feed Derrick Henry the rock and see what happens. But here's the key. The key to the offense is going to be the offensive line. It has to be. We've talked about this Ravens offense, the line in particular, struggling with physical defensive fronts. So Pittsburgh has a physical defensive front. Philadelphia, for example, has that. Kansas City has that. Teams that don't, that's like a Buffalo. And Baltimore destroyed Buffalo. If you don't have a physical defensive line, in my opinion, you have no chance against the Ravens. And that's why I feel good about a Bills rematch for Baltimore in the playoffs if it gets to that. But Pittsburgh, Kansas City, Philly, those teams I just mentioned, those are the teams that gives the Ravens offensive line some fits at times. I want the Ravens offensive line to change the narrative. That's what I want. Because we've seen in those 3 games, struggle from that offensive line unit. So you have to protect Lamar Jackson. You have to open up rushing lanes for Derrick Henry. Those guys can make things happen on their own, but they can't do everything. They can't do everything. The offensive line is the most important part of the offense, in my opinion. If you listen to me every day on Locked On Ravens, you've heard me say that for years. I think you have to. You have to figure out a way to neutralize that Steelers front 7. And we know Patrick Queen is going to be playing with energy. We know the Steelers is the hat and T-shirt game. They want to go out there. They want to win. For Roquan Smith, I've said this all week. I think he said it perfectly. This is a check your manhood game. You can't let your opponent, especially a division rival, as hated as Pittsburgh and as heated as that rivalry is, you cannot let your biggest rival celebrate your division title on your home field. You can't do it. You cannot do it. That would be the ultimate letdown, the ultimate disappointment, honestly, the ultimate embarrassment. So to me, I think the Ravens will take care of business in this game because here's the other thing. Out of these 2 teams, they're more backed up in a corner. And when a team's backed up in a corner, when anybody's backed up in a corner, they tend to fight a little harder, right? And the Ravens, if they lose this game, that's it. They're backed into the corner here. And it's about, are you going to fight for it or are you going to just give up and let them have it? And I think for the Ravens, they are really mad about the way this rivalry has gone over the last handful of seasons. They want to get back here. They want to get it right. And so I'm going to say the Ravens win. I'm going to say the defense absolutely dominates Pittsburgh's offense. I think they get nothing or very minimal going. But to the point where I'm going to say still, these Ravens-Steelers games, you can never predict them. You never know what's going to actually happen in them because these AFC North games are just so weird. I mean, you can talk about Steelers-Bengals, Ravens-Browns, Browns-Bengals, any AFC North game. There's always some weird thing that happens, whether it's a blowout or not. Weird things happen in those games. So I'm going to say the Ravens win this one 24-17. I'm not expecting there to be a ton of offensive fireworks. I think it's going to be more of a defensive battle this time around, especially with how talented both defenses are. But I expect the Ravens to come to play. I expect the crowd at M&T Bank Stadium to be into it. If you're going to the game, be loud. Make the Steelers uncomfortable. And here's the other thing. I expect a Justin Tucker bounce back. I'm going out on a limb and saying that. I know I am. And look, if I'm wrong about any of this, I will come on the post-game show and we'll, of course, talk about it. I will admit I was wrong. I have no problem doing that. But to me, the kicks that we saw was only extra points from Justin Tucker, obviously, on Sunday against the Giants. He didn't need to kick field goals because the Ravens were just so dominant. But those looked like Justin Tucker kicks, right? Straight down the middle, end over end. That's what it was. Didn't look like he was pressing. I know he said the bye week was excruciating for him, but I really am expecting a Justin Tucker bounce back. Now, I think we should, to end the show, talk about Diontae Johnson a little bit. Again, we talked about it in the live instant reaction edition yesterday. So if you want more of that conversation, be sure to tune into that and check that out. But for Diontae Johnson, the Ravens end the saga finally. It was just a disaster overall, major distraction. It's honestly very mind-blowing to me that the Ravens could give up so little in a draft, in a trade, I guess draft capital and deal, and still have it be that much of a disaster. I think it was one of Eric DeCosta's biggest misses, and obviously not for the draft compensation he gave up, but more so just because of how disappointing it was that the Ravens needed a depth wide receiver. They go with Diontae Johnson, and they go, all right, this is the guy we're going to get. Talented player, some risks with the attitude and everything, and now less than 2 months later, a very public drama feud now comes to an end. Ends with 5 targets, 1 catch, 6 yards. Just awful. Awful. Now he'll have the opportunity to either get claimed by a team, or if he doesn't get claimed, he can sign with a contender. Wouldn't be shocked if he went back to Pittsburgh. Wouldn't be shocked if he went to a team like Houston. Kansas City, Buffalo, I'm not sure they need him as much. I mean, I think they could, but it's going to be a matter of teams weighing his personality and weighing his off-field stuff versus on-field talent. If they want to take a chance on the on-field talent like the Ravens did, with the possibility of it going the way it did in Baltimore or Carolina or Pittsburgh, then that's on them. But Jeremy Fowler of ESPN put it pretty well. He said, Diontae Johnson, there's no doubt about it, he burned millions with this situation. Just absolute awfully handled by him. And again, I'm not saying the Ravens are perfect in this situation either. I don't think they handled it great either when it came to his role. But when you quit on your team, it opens up a whole different can of worms. And I'm really glad we can just stop talking about the whole situation right now. But that's all I have for you here today on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show today. On the way out, hit that like and subscribe button and follow along, audio, video form. And be sure to turn notifications on so you know when our content comes out in all platforms. And that includes our live show where we'll be live after the Ravens and Steelers game, talking everything that happens. So be sure to stay tuned. I'll see you right back here later today on Locked On Ravens.